Now the process starts in the 17th verse. ātmā viniṣkalo hyeko deho bahubhirāvṛtaḥ tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti kimajñānamataḥ param. He says here, you the Atman. Atman means you, or I, the self. You the Atman. You are without any parts. This physical body and even the subtle body has multiple parts. And we consider them to be one and the same. What greater ignorance can there be? Kimajñānamataḥ param. Now what does he mean here? He has said a lot of things. First, we must understand what is the process going on here. We are trying to find out the true I. Who am I really? A basic distinction is subject and object. I and this. Whatever we experience as this is not I. In many cases it's pretty simple. The table is not I. I never say I am the table. I am not the glass. I am not even the shirt on my back. But the real problem starts with this skin, with this body. Sometimes I say I, this one. Sometimes I say my body. And when I'm studying Vedanta, I say this. So the problem starts with the body. Sometimes we include the body in the meaning of the word I, in the meaning of the word you. I mean that particular body sitting there is you. Now, if the word I has to exclude everything that we can classify as this, the body also can be classified, easily classified as this body. It's an object of experience. In every sense, it's an object of experience. You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, especially when it's hungry or when it's sick, you can feel it. You can hear it, the stomach rumbling. And if you don't take a bath for a number of days, you can smell it. So, the body is an object of our senses. It's this. And the process of refining tells us everything that can be classified as this has to be excluded from the meaning of the word I. Remember, we are refining. We are putting the crude I, like the crude oil. We have taken the crude I and now we are putting it through the process of, we have the huge Vedanta refinery. We are putting it through that process now. The first thing, what you have to get rid of, the operating principle is anything that you can classify, you can experience as this does not enter into the meaning of the word I. That has to be removed. Removed means not physically. You are not going to take a pincer and extract the real I from the body-mind complex. In your understanding, in our understanding. Let's see the this as the this. Why take it as I? Now remember, everybody has a body. Even the enlightened person, Vivekananda or Ramakrishna, we see that clearly, we can see a body. What is meant is, the existence of the body or appearance of the body is not a problem. Identification with the body is a problem. So the identification with the body has to be loosened. Now see, how we loosen the identification with the body. Consider these three things. One, I always consider myself to be a unit. One. The body is obviously a conglomeration of many parts. Hands and feet and head and stomach and so on. And multiple organs and below, and if you go deeper, tissues, and if you go deeper, millions and millions of cells. It's a multitude. Somebody told me that the number of bacteria in our body are more than our own cells. So it's a multitude, teeming multitude. And what is our experience of myself, of ourselves? I am one. We never considered that, but we generally consider ourselves to be one unit. I stands for a singular number. That which is multiple and that which is one. Here is a distinction. Contemplate this distinction. Number one. Number two, I always feel that I am sentient, I am aware, I am conscious. And the body is an object of my awareness, of my consciousness, of my sentience. I always feel that. Contemplate this. Number 3, I always feel I am the same and the body is changing. I am unchanging and the body is changing. You may say, no Swami, we feel we are changing. After all, I was a little kid, then I was a teenager, now I am a middle-aged person or I'm an old person. Of course I'm changing. But what has changed? What was a kid? What was a teenager? What was a middle-aged person or old person? The body. Every change you are speaking about is a change in the body. I didn't know much. Now I am doing a PhD, so I know so much, so I've changed. But what has changed? What has changed? The mind. That's also an object of your awareness. All changes we see are by definition, if you are aware of the changes, you are the one which is aware and the change is something that you are aware of, by very definition. So you cannot be a changing entity, that pure awareness itself, by logic and by experience. By reason and by experience, you are not a changing entity, you are that which is aware of the changes. All the changes are in your body, in your mind, of course in the world outside also. So contemplate these 3 things. These 3 things which the text is just pointing out. Number 1, we always see ourselves as one, and obviously the body is a combination of many things. Even the inner body, the subtle body, is a combination of many parts. There is the memory, there are emotions, there's the intellect with its understanding and not understanding, and so on. The whole personality is multifaceted, has multiple components. But I always feel I am one, singular. Number 1, you are one, and that which is not you, the mind or body, is many, manifold. I don't mean you have many bodies. I don't mean you have many personalities, unless one has a multiple personality disorder. But the personality itself, even a single personality, has many parts and changing parts. So the third thing is, I am unchanging, and everything else which I consider to be myself is changing. The body is changing, personality is changing, mind is changing, memories are changing, everything is changing. So I am unchanging. One, many. Awareness, object of awareness. Unchanging, changing. Think about these 3 things. That's what he is saying. ātmā viniṣkalo. Atma has no parts. And deho bahubhirāvṛtaḥ is a conglomeration of many parts. The word kala, which means part, it also means art in Indian languages, but kala also means part. Now, if you want to go deeper into that, what are the parts of the body? It speaks about the 5 elements. There is an earth part, viniṣkalo, earth part, is the physical. If you just see in a very simple way, look at the body. There is flesh, skin, bones. That's the earth part, viniṣkalo, of this body. Then there is jalakala, apakala, that is the blood running through our various juices and hormones and whatnot, enzymes, all coursing through this body. That is the watery aspect, the elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then we are breathing in and out. Very important, oxygen. So that is the air aspect. And then there is the heat. Heat is extremely important. Without heat, the body will die. So the fire aspect. And the space occupied by this body, the space aspect. These are all aspects of the body. The body has 5 aspects from the 5 elements. There are other kalas also in Tantra. The time is also an aspect. The time applied to the body is ayu, lifespan. That's also something which is an aspect of the body. So in this way you can speak of many aspects of the body. But I, the observer, do not have these aspects. I watch, I experience the body with these aspects. So I am without aspects, without parts. The body has parts. Even the subtle body has parts. Now I am confusing the 2. You say, no, I am not. Yes, we are. When I ask you, when you ask me, who are you? You say, don't you see here? This. He says, kimajñānamataḥ param, what greater foolishness can there be? You, the one, you're saying this multiplicity is you. When I say, who are you? I am this. And what is this? I. You see the subtle mutual superimposition? Who am I? This body. What is this body? I. So, the I is associated with this body and the body is superimposed upon the I. I am using the language of Shankara, anyonyadhyasa. Yes. So, anyonyadhyasa is a term used by Shankaracharya, mutual superimposition. It simply means I take the body to be myself, and when you are asked about the body, I say it is I. I am the body and the body is me. Superimposing one upon the other. Kimajñānamataḥ param, what greater ignorance can there be? I, the second aspect, I as consciousness and body, an object of consciousness. And what do I say? I am this body. The consciousness and object of consciousness, we are taking them to be one and the same. Kimajñānamataḥ param, what greater ignorance can there be? What greater foolishness can there be? And I always experience myself as changeless. And everything in this body and mind is changing. And I say, who am I? This body and mind. Kimajñānamataḥ param, what greater ignorance can there be? What greater foolishness can there be? We are saying it is one and many, we are saying it is one. Identifying the one and the many. Consciousness and object of consciousness, identifying them, taking them to be one and the same. Unchanging, and how can the unchanging be the changing? How can the changing be the unchanging? And yet we smoothly do that. We have absolutely no qualms about saying such a ridiculous thing. Only Vedanta is pointing it out to us now. Kimajñānamataḥ param. What greater foolishness can there be? Let's just touch upon the 18th verse. ātmā niyāmakaścāntar deho bāhyo niyamyakaḥ tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti kimajñānamataḥ param. More pointing out, like a powerful lawyer, expert lawyer. Shankaracharya is marshalling arguments, not to convince us, to show us. He's showing it to us. Look at ourselves. We always consider the self to be the controller and body to be the controlled. Take it in a very naive, simple way. All the time I feel I am controlling the body. Therefore the body is something controlled, I am the controller. The driver of the car is not the car. It's a simple argument, but not simple-minded. It shows what we actually think of ourselves and something that we don't notice, that we always regard ourselves as the controller. The operator of the machine is not the machine. The driver of the car is not the car. Niyāmakaḥ, the controller. Niyamyakaḥ, the controlled. They are usually two different things. The body is controlled, is operated, and we are the controller or operator. Now, if there are any philosophy students here, they will immediately object. This is the old theory of homunculus, little man in the mind which is controlling the body mind. That theory has been disproved. It's not a serious theory. In what sense, with what deeper sense is Atman the controller? Remember, Atman here is not like a little man sitting in in the big cranes are there. There's a little box on top of the big crane where a man is sitting there and controlling the huge crane. Atman itself is not like a little man sitting somewhere in the headquarters of the mind and the brain and then controlling the whole body and mind. No. It is more like the Atman pure consciousness gives existence and consciousness to body and mind. Existence and consciousness are lent to the mind and body, and then the mind and body do their thing. The Atman does not control the mind and body directly, no more than a magnet is controlling the iron filings whirling around it. So just by the presence of the pure consciousness, the mind and body operate. That much is the controlling, no more than that. It's not operating in any particular sense. In that case, there will be serious objections. Then the Atman becomes an operator. An operator is always subject to action and change. So not in that sense. So the Atman is the operator or is the controller only in the sense of lending existence and consciousness to body-mind. A second fact is pointed out. Simple fact, which we're always aware of. He's just pointing it out. The body is always regarded as external to you, the self. We always feel, I am somewhere in there. We always feel I'm somewhere in there. So if I'm something inside and the body is something outside, how can the two be one? He says, antar, the self is inner and the body is bāhyo, external. A simple psychological fact. It is something external. External to you, the consciousness. It has to be because it's an object of consciousness. The body is an object of consciousness. Just as this is an object of consciousness and it is exterior to consciousness. Consciousness watches it or experiences it. In the same way, the consciousness experiences the body. We have done up to 17 and 18 and the 19th verse, the same subject. How am I not the body? I sort of take it without question that I am the body. Well, convince me. I'm open to being convinced. Show me that I'm not this body. ātmā jñānamayaḥ puṇyo deho māṃsamayo śuciḥ tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti kimajñānamataḥ param. Atman is the knower. It is all consciousness, it is all knowledge. The self is the knower and hence pure. The body is a mixture of flesh and blood and tissues and all sorts of gooey wet stuff. It would be a mess if it were not covered by this tightly in this bag of skin, So, ashuciḥ, impure. It's made of flesh and blood and bones and so on. To think that the self is the body when they have such opposite characteristics, what greater ignorance can there be? So this is the translation of the verse. And what is the argument here? The Atman, the self, is the knower. Let's dwell on this for just a brief while. What is our experience about ourselves? In every experience of life, one thing is common. We have always seen ourselves as the experiencer. We have always been the knower, the experiencer. You had a happy experience and a pleasant experience. You were the one who experienced. It goes without saying, we never think about that. But always I am the one who experiences. And what happens in life is something that is experienced. I am never an object of experience. My body is an object of experience. I feel my body, especially when it is sick or ill or giving me trouble, then I do feel it. In fact, I feel it more than anything else. You see how tragic it is and how strange it is that the slightest cut or bruise on my foot causes me more worry and anxiety and pain than the greatest tragedy half a world away, where thousands of people may die, but I feel this more directly. So the body is definitely an object of experience. We always experience the body, or at least a lot of times we are experiencing the body, we feel it. If the body is an object of experience, we are the experiencer. The experiencer and the experienced are two different entities. So we are the knower in every situation. The knower is always the self. Simple example. You are sitting here and listening to this talk. The talk is what you experience. And who is the experiencer? You. You are the one who experiences sound and light and color. All of this is experienced by you. That is not experiencing you. The sounds and light and color are not experiencing the self. The self is always experiencing everything else. It's the simplest, most basic fact. That is the structure of experience. The self is always the knower and the non-self is, not nonsense, non-self. The non-self is the known. And that's always so. Almost by definition it is so. And he points out this, ātmā jñānamayaḥ. If you are the knower, you must be all consciousness. It's only consciousness which knows. Awareness, sentience, that is what knows. And the body is a body of flesh and blood and bones. He calls it impure. Knowledge is pure. We'll dwell more on that later on. But the body is impure, and this is a theme which you find in many religions. In fact, all religions, to some extent or the other. It's not fashionable anymore. We are worshippers of the body beautiful. Especially here in California. You must have a fit and beautiful body, and that's good. It's good to have a fit and beautiful body. But remember the nature of the body. In Buddhism, there are so many meditations. One of the meditations, a particularly difficult and gruesome one, is they sit for meditation in the cremation grounds. In India, they burn the bodies. So they sit for meditation in the cremation ground. And if a body is not burned, it just lays there, and they watch it decay over days. As it swells up and maggots come into it, and it decays and putrefies and sinks into a messy goo. You sit and watch, hour after hour after hour, and see what's happening to the body. That is the nature of the body. That is the very nature of the body. It is matter which is subject to decay and death. All the time when we are living, it is the life forces within this body which are struggling a day and night battle against death. We, with our modern understanding of the immune system, we know how this body, each body, is continuously battling invaders from inside and outside which are seeking to damage and destroy the body. The immune system is always fighting a perpetual war. So the nature of the body is impure. Let me be gross. And I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm quoting an ancient text, Sureshwaracharya's Naishkarmya Siddhi. We who can't tolerate the slightest mess, slightest bit of mess, something that smells bad, something that's messy, ugly looking, we can't tolerate it. We have a sense of beauty and proportion, taste. And yet, what lies just beneath the skin of this body? What lies right, as they say, what we carry around in our stomachs all day and night. We never think about it. If anybody speaks about it, it's offensive. But we do that. And when a person excretes it, it immediately becomes something dirty, unthinkable, unmentionable, would not look at it, let alone even touch it. And that's what we carry around with ourselves throughout our lives. The moment it leaves our body, it's unmentionable. And yet just 1 second ago, it was part of me, it was me. And yet you are consciousness, you are the knower, the experiencer. Shankaracharya says, how can you make them one? How can you make these two one? The knower and the known object. One is pure, that consciousness or knowledge is pure, we shall dwell on that. And the body is definitely something that you yourself, it would offend your sensibilities if it was set out in front of you in a plate. The contents of this body. We'd all probably throw up if you see what's inside the body. So, taking them to be one, the knower and the known, we take them to be one all the time. The pure and the impure, we take them to be one all the time. What can be greater ignorance than this? They are not one. We are confusing them, mixing them up because of ignorance. We do not separate ourselves into the self and the non-self. We combine the self and the body together and say, I. So, the next verse, 20th. ātmā prakāśaka svaccha dehastāmasa uchyate tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti kimajñānamataḥ param. Ātmā is the illuminer, and it is pure. Svaccha means pure or clear. Deha, body. He calls body tamasa. It is darkness itself. Tayoraikyaṃ, light and darkness. We combine them together. We say it's one thing. I say this body is I. Light is pointing to darkness and saying that's me. Kimajñānamataḥ param. What greater ignorance, what greater foolishness can there be? Let's try to understand it. Atman is self-luminous, like the sun. The sun illumines everything. And the sun is pure. In what sense is it pure? You see, when light falls on something, light may fall on ditch water. You look at flashlight, you see a ditch water, and then you see maybe a jar full of holy water. The light which falls on the ditch water does not become impure because it's falling on something impure. The light which is falling on the holy water does not become any further holy or anything like that. The light is not affected by what it illumines. The light may, as somebody said, the policeman who's patrolling in an Indian village at night, and he has a flashlight. A flashlight is high-tech. Yes, now maybe not these days. There are mobiles everywhere. But I remember this old gentleman who said the most high-tech thing that in their village was a flashlight, which was given to the watchman of the village by the government. So people used to come from other houses to see the flashlight. And so imagine, there's no electricity, and at night the watchman is patrolling the village, and he sees something in the dark, and he switches on the flashlight, and he sees it's a monk, a sadhu, under a tree and meditating. All right. He passes on, sees something moving fishily in the dark, and he switches on the flashlight, and he sees it's a robber, a thief trying to sneak in somewhere, and presumably he nabs the robber. But the flashlight the light is not affected by illumining a sadhu, is not affected by illumining a thief. So in that sense, light is not affected but by what it shines upon. Consciousness is not affected by what it is aware of. Consciousness, what it illumines, what it reveals, it might be good, it might be bad, it might be dharma, it might be adharma, religion and irreligion, good and bad, moral and immoral. But the consciousness itself is not affected by any of this. In this sense, it is said to be śuciḥ. Śuciḥ means pure, clear. Does not matter what it reveals. What it reveals may be good or bad, but that which reveals is not affected by that. Now, think about it. Consciousness is the light of lights. Here, when the room was dark, you switch on the light, you can see everything. So light is the revealer. But this light and the room it reveals is known by your eyes. It would not be cognized. It would not be known except for you seeing it. So your eyes are the light which reveals this light and the room. And your eyes seeing something, that will work only when your mind is on what you are seeing. So mind is connected to the eyes. In that sense, mind is the light which reveals your eyes. Eyes are the light which reveal the external light. And external light is something that reveals this external room. Really, your mind is the light for all of these lights. And your mind, according to the Upanishads, according to Vedanta, the contents of our minds are revealed by the consciousness shining in the mind. So consciousness in the mind is the light of lights. In that sense, consciousness is said to be prakāṣaka, revealer, the light of lights. If this light is switched off, you may say, I cannot see anything without this light. But that you cannot see anything, that fact also is revealed by your consciousness. Is it not? Think about it. Without consciousness, nothing will be revealed. To you, without your consciousness, nothing will be revealed. All lights may be on or lights may be switched off. Whatever happens in the world, whatever happens in the mind within ourselves, nothing is revealed without consciousness. With consciousness, the presence or absence of things external to consciousness are revealed. So this is what he is saying. Consciousness is the light of lights. It's prakāṣaka, the illuminer. Dehas tamasa. The nature of body is darkness, in the sense that body is something that is an object of knowledge. Body is not something that knows. You see, we think that the body is something that is aware of other things. It's only because consciousness percolating through the mind and the nervous system flowing through the body, we feel that this body is conscious. Consciousness shines upon the mind, mind becomes filled with consciousness. So we feel a mind full of awareness. And the mind being connected to the body also feels conscious. And therefore we see, here I am. And we make a mistake by thinking, I am a body with consciousness. The book tells us, you are consciousness aware of a body. You are consciousness using a body. You are consciousness channeling yourself through a body. You are not a body with consciousness. You can even say you are consciousness in which a body is appearing and acting and feeling and knowing. And the challenge is to see it as a fact, not as a claim. Vedanta says, what it is saying now is actually truer to our experience than what we normally talk, the tale we tell ourselves. That I am a body with consciousness is not as true as saying, as far as our experience goes, I am consciousness in which a body appears. Think about it. Throughout our day, right now, here is this body. The moment I go to sleep, the body disappears from my awareness. The body is in the bed, I am not aware of it. I am aware of a dream world in which I have a dream body and I do dream things in the dream world. What continues? Consciousness. You are aware. The awareness continues from the waking state into the sleep state, into the dream state. The body is left behind from your awareness. So, it is more logical to say from your own point of view that your body drifts in and out of your awareness. Rather than, I am a body in which consciousness comes and goes. Our experience is telling us that. But we take a material point of view and say, I am a body which is sometimes conscious and sometimes sleeping. That's the tale we tell ourselves. It's looking at it from outside of ourselves. So, the body is an object of awareness. It is darkness. He calls it darkness. And we to identify the two, light calling itself darkness, kimajñānamataḥ param. What greater ignorance can there be when light calls itself darkness? The knower calls itself the known. Consciousness calls itself flesh and bone. What greater ignorance can there? What greater foolishness can there be? The complete opposites. We ignore that and say, I am this body. It's a mistake. And there is a saying, Pramadam vai mrityum aham bravimi. I say that mistake, error is death. Forgetfulness is death. Forgetfulness of our real nature is death. Pramadam vai mrityu. Pramada means error, a spiritual error. We make the fatal mistake of forgetting our true selves and connecting ourselves, identifying ourselves with this changing body. This body will die. If I am this body, I will die. If I am the consciousness in which the body appears and goes, then I am the consciousness which will also witness the death of this body. If I am the witness of the death of this body, the body will die. Whether you know yourself as consciousness or not, it won't stop the death of the body. The body will grow old and it will die. But the consciousness will witness the death of this body also. That's the claim. Now, let's do one more. ātmā nityo hi sadrūpo deho nityaya sanmayaḥ tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti kimajñānamataḥ param. Ātmā nitya, the self is eternal. Sadrūpa. Why? Because it is the nature of existence. Deha, body, is non-eternal, subject to birth and death, creation and destruction. Why? Because it is an effect. It is asat, false. It's something to be understood. What he is saying here is very deep philosophy. tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti. And people see them to be the one and the same thing. Kimajñānamataḥ param. What greater ignorance can there be? Let's look at this carefully. ātmā nityo hi sadrupo. The Atman is eternal because they say that through all the changes from birth to growth of the body, to maturity, to old age, to decay, to death, these are all experienced. By whom? By the self. So the body keeps changing from one state to another. And presumably it will die one day and the experience goes on. So that which experiences the body, we have a feeling that I was the child, I was the teenager, I was the middle-aged person, I was the old person, I am a very old person now. I am the same. I don't say there was somebody else who was a child, somebody else who was a teenager, now there is somebody else who is a middle-aged person. I don't say that. I say I am the same person. Then I cannot be the body. The body has changed so radically. Then I have an experience of being a continuity, a conscious continuity. Now, what guarantee is there that when the body dies, this consciousness will not evaporate? That's the question. Then the body dies, it's only when the body is continuing that you feel that you are a continuous consciousness. It's a little bit of, subtle bit of thinking. You see, every exchange we have experienced, the experiencer experiences the change in the body. So the experiencer is apart from what is experienced. And to note any change, the change must be something that is experienced. It cannot be in the experiencer. So any kind of change to be experienced must be apart from the experiencer. And death or destruction is a change. Creation is a change. I hope you're following this. It's a bit subtle. Of course, if you're following it, you might be outraged. This is a very radical way of thinking. So, if you experience it, if it is something that can be experienced, it must be apart from the experiencer. The experiencer is always the consciousness. Death or birth are experiences. They must be apart from the experience of the consciousness. Hence, the consciousness is not born, nor does it die. You cannot speak of the destruction of the knower. You cannot speak of it. You cannot experience it. Who would experience it? The knower must continue to experience it. You say, no, but we all experience people dying, but we see the destruction of the body. Nobody has ever seen the destruction of the knower. Not only that, I'll claim that no one has yet seen the knower. Nobody has seen the subject or the knower or the experiencer. Now this continuous existence, I have this chain of reasoning, please follow it carefully. This is based on the 16th verse of Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Na sato vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate sata.
Okay, so he doesn't chant the full verse here, so I'll chant the full verse, then I'll read the translation. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubayorapi dristantas, tvanayas tattvadarshibihi. The seers of the truth have concluded that of the asat, the temporary, there is no endurance, and of the sat, the eternal, there is no change. This they have concluded after seeing the nature of both.
It's the philosophical heart of the entire Bhagavad Gita, as far as Advaita Vedanta is concerned. Philosophical heart of the entire Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, 16th verse. I've chosen my words carefully. I did not say the spiritual heart or the practical heart or the devotional heart of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm saying philosophical heart of the Bhagavad Gita. What does it say? Basically, I'll tell you in a few words. When we are boiling potatoes, the potato is hot. It's boiling. It's hot. Does the heat belong to the potato? Is it an intrinsic property of the potato? When you say a hot potato, we use the term. But really, are potatoes hot? No. The heat has been borrowed from the boiling water. The potato was cold when it was in the refrigerator. And after some time, when you set it out on the plate, it will become cold again, unless somebody eats it up first. So, potato does not have heat of its own. It's borrowed that heat. It's come from the boiling water in which it is being boiled. It's being, when you're cooking it. And the boiling water, does it have heat of its own? So the potato has borrowed heat. And the characteristic of borrowing something is, it was not there earlier, it is there now, it will lose it very soon. The potato was not hot earlier, it is hot now, again it will lose the heat very soon. That's the characteristic of not having its intrinsic heat. The water from which it borrowed the heat, does the water have a heat of its own? It's a no, it borrowed it from the hot pan in which the water is kept. The water was cold earlier, now it's bubbling hot. It will become cold a little while later. So, it was cold earlier, it is hot now, it will become cold a little while later, because it's borrowed its heat from something. It does not have heat of its own. The pan, does it have heat of its own? It's very hot, but does it have heat of its own? No. It was not hot in the cupboard. Now it's on the fire, it's hot. So it has also borrowed heat. It was cold earlier and it's hot now, it will become cold later. It will lose what has been borrowed will be lost. Now the fire under the pan, is it hot or cold? It's very hot. Does that heat belong to the fire or is it borrowed? And don't say it was borrowed. The fire was cold earlier, now it's hot, it will become cold. No, as long as the fire lasts, it will be very hot. It will be hot. So as long as the fire lasts, it has heat as its property. That heat, which is the heat of the fire, is intrinsic to the fire. And its characteristic is, it lasts forever. That heat which is borrowed comes and goes. Because it was borrowed. Only for a time being. It will lose it. Because the object which has borrowed, the pan or the water or the potato, doesn't have heat of its own. So, that which stays forever is intrinsic to it. That which comes and goes is borrowed and lost. Now supposing, here's the question. If something borrows existence from something else, if something has borrowed existence, then what will happen to that thing? It will get existence and lose existence. Something borrows heat, it gets heat, is hot for a while and then loses it. If you can think of borrowing existence, then the thing will exist for some time and then go out of existence. The sign of borrowing existence is a thing will come into existence, exist for a while, go out of existence. The sign of borrowing heat is a cold thing will become hot for a while and then become cold again. In the same way, sign of borrowing existence is a thing will come into existence, will be born, will exist for a while, and then again lose it, will die. Being born and dying, birth and death, are signs of borrowed existence. Now you may say this is hair-splitting argumentation. But no, we see it all the time. How? The table. It has borrowed existence. From what? From the wood. It was wood earlier. It exists as a table because it has borrowed existence from the wood. One day it will be broken, sold as scrap maybe. It will still be pieces of wood. The table will no longer exist. It borrowed existence from its underlying reality, from its material cause. And it exists as a table because it has borrowed existence from wood. Wood has also borrowed existence from a more fundamental form of matter and so on. Now the question is, if something has intrinsic existence, what will happen to it? Fire has intrinsic heat, it never loses it. If something has intrinsic existence, what will happen to it? It will never lose existence. It will be immortal. It will never be born because it always existed. It will never die because it will always continue to exist. And there is only one thing which we can conceive of in this way, at least philosophically we can conceive of. That is existence itself. Existence itself. And such a concept you have in the Upanishads, it's called Sat. Sat, pure existence, being with a capital B. Existence itself never goes out of existence. Things come and go out of existence. Things borrow their being from pure existence and exist for a while and lose their existence. Pure existence or being continues to exist because it is intrinsically, it has existence. It's a very strange way of thinking, but that's what's given in the 16th verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And here they are saying, ātmā nitya. Now you can understand. The self is eternal. Why? The argument given here is because it is pure being. One of the characteristics of the self is, I am, I exist. And this is pure being. Existence itself, I am existence itself. Hence, I am eternal. Things borrow their existence from me, and things lose their existence in me. So they are non-eternal, they come and go. The body is one of them. Deha anitya. The body is definitely non-eternal. It is subject to birth, it's subject to death. Where does it borrow its existence from? The body is made of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space. So their existence is lent to the body. Where do they get their existence from? The Upanishads will show us how all of them borrow their existence from the self, from Atman. Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, it's there. So, let me put it all together. The Atman is said to be eternal because it is existence itself. You say, prove that it is existence itself? That will require a long dialectic. But it can be easily proved. Shankaracharya, in his commentary on the 16th verse of the second chapter, he shows that the self is existence itself. And hence, and he had shown it step by step with lot of subtle argumentations, questions, objections, replies, and so on. So we are pure being itself. By that logic, we can never lose our existence. Other things come into existence borrowing their being from us and losing their being again. So they are non-eternal. The body is one of those things which comes into existence, exists for some time, and loses its existence. Why? Because it is asat, not pure being. The Atman, the self, is eternal. Why? Because it is sat, pure being. Tayoraikyaṃ prapaśyanti. People speak of the oneness of pure being and non-being, the most contradictory of things. The eternal and the non-eternal are taken to be one and the same. Pure being sat and appearance asat are taken to be one and the same. Kimajñānamataḥ. What greater ignorance can there be?